نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونستهديه ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهدي الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له ونشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له ونشهد أن محمدًا عبده ورسوله سيد المرسلين وخاتم النبيين ورحمة للعالمين وصلى الله على آله الطاهرين الذين أذهب الله عنهم الرجس وطهرهم تطهيرا. أوصيكم عباد الله ونفسي بتقوى الله. Today happens to be Friday the 13th. And I would like to talk about this superstition and relate it with some of the things which goes on in our own community. In the West, Friday the 13th is considered to be an unlucky day. According to the information, we are told that, few people go for shopping on this day, few people travel, so that should be the day if you're looking for lower fares. On the Friday 13th, and no one wants to get married on that day. Majority of high-rise buildings in this part of the world, they don't have 13th floor. And according to the information given by Stress Management Center, it has been estimated that 800 to 900 million dollars are lost in business on that day in the US because people will not fly and not do business that they would do normally. Even some of the hospitals don't have, room number 13. Now, where does it come from? We are not sure about it. One of the suggestions are that in the Last Supper of Christ, according to the Christian, belief, on Thursday night when he met, there were 13 individuals, Jesus and 12 of his apostles, and one of them betrayed him. And so that is considered to be, number 13, which is not a lucky number. But this idea of number 13 being bad omen or unlucky or nahas as we call it, manhus. This has actually gone across regions and cultures. Even among the Muslims, number 13 is considered to be unlucky. Even in our calendar, only we say, 13th Rajab is fine because it's the wiladat of Amir al-Mu'mineen. So his wiladat supersedes that nahas or nuhus of that day. And I remember even in the 70s when I was studying in Qom, if you walk in any alley there, you will see the house numbers. You will say 10, 11, 12, and then it will say 12 plus 1. The house number will never say 13. And so this is the concept which has been there. And I would like to relate that to, since the wedding season is now already in, and let me talk about this issue of appropriate dates when we talk about marriage. In our calendar that we have, the religious calendar that we publish, there are 2 to 3 days every month in the lunar calendar, which are designated as the days where we say, Qamar Dar Aqrab, which means, these are the days when the moon is in the constellation of Scorpio, the family of stars. And you will see there is a note which says that according to some ahadith, it is makruh to do nikah or the marriage on those days. Now, let me just explain why do we have that, and what is the strength of that. Number one, when we talk about marriage, marriage is a good deed. It is a highly recommended deed in Islam. However, we have some ahadith which say don't do the marriage. It is makruh to do the marriage on the days when it is Qamar Dar Aqrab. And so we are talking about 2 or 3 days in every lunar calendar. But what does the word makruh here mean? It doesn't mean that, your action of marriage will become makruh. Something which is good cannot become makruh. What it actually means is that, and it's not that, the moon at that time will have a negative impact on the marriage relationship if it's done on that day. What it means is actually karahat has different meanings. Karahat means sometimes the act itself is disliked. Sometimes the word karahat and makruh is used to say that if you do this, at this time, the level of sawab will go down. If you had done the same thing at some other time, then the level of sawab will go up. And so when we talk about Qamar Dar Aqrab, when it is said avoid marriage at that time, what it means is that doing marriage is a good deed. It has its own merit and sawab and reward in the eyes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But doing it at that time, the level of sawab decreases. It's just like, for example, we say traveling in the month of Ramadan is makruh. What does it mean? Because you can still do the qadha later on. You can fulfill the obligation later on. You have the permission to travel in the month of Ramadan. But when it says it is makruh, what it means is that although you will do the qadha later on, but the level of thawab of fasting in the month of Ramadan is higher than fasting at other times. Or for example, it is said it is makruh to travel on Fridays after Fajr. Why? Because you'll be missing the Friday prayers and the ajr and sawab there. And so this is where we have to realize that, here karahat doesn't mean that the act itself becomes makruh. It just means that the level of thawab that you can earn decreases at that time. Now the ahadith that we have about this issue of, Qamar Dar Aqrab, and even sometimes you will see in certain calendars they say it's Nahas, and not a good day to do this and that. The ahadith are not really of a level which will be, the category of strong ahadith. Our mujtahideen, when they deal with halal and haram, what is wajib and haram, they, put their total weight in scrutinizing the hadith, whether it is acceptable or not. When it comes to the issues like what is mustahab and what is makruh, they have some, standards where things become more lenient. Even if the hadith might not be strong, they will say, let it go. We will accept it because it is not an issue of wajib or haram. And these ahadiths which talk about Qamar Dar Aqrab come under that category, where they will not strongly say that, you act on it, but if you do it, you will get ajr and sawab because it is a statement attributed to the Ma'sumeen alayhimu salatu wassalam. Salawat. Even if you end up one day seeing the calendar, things don't work out the way you wanted, and you are stuck with that day where it is Qamar Dar Aqrab, there is a solution to that. Go ahead and do your planning of your wedding, but give sadaqah for that day. And inshallah, whatever's bala is there will be averted. And so the issue is that, it's not that complicated the way sometimes we make our own lives, when we look at these ahadith especially. Salawat padne ek baar. Let me emphasize the point that when we say it is makruh to do the nikah or the wedding on Qamar Dar Aqrab, it doesn't mean that, the moon, when it is in that constellation of Scorpio, it is going to have an impact on your marital relationship. Not at all. You know, what can poison your relationship in marriage is the sting of the tongue and not the tail of the Scorpio in the stars. Okay? That tail of Scorpio is far away. It doesn't impact on your marriage relationship. If you really want to have things, work, it is between the two of you. The husband and the wife are the one who have to work in order to make their marriage a blissful and happy marriage. There is no guarantees that if you you look at all these things, the days are okay, so everything will be okay. No. I remember once I had to recite, one of the most unpleasant things that I had to do many times is to recite the talaq, divorce. And in one case, I remember the family had come at my home, we're sitting there, and once the issues were finalized, we said, okay, we'll recite the talaq. But before I recited it, the fellow looks at me and said, Maulana, before doing the marriage, we saw istikhara through you and you said it's good. I said, okay, I saw the istikhara, the marriage was good. It didn't come with a lifetime warranty. Istikhara can be good, that you are a good match for one another. But whether it is going to survive or not don't depend on the istikhara, or you looked at the day, it was not nahas, it was not qamar dar aqrab, so everything would be okay. No. You still have to work in order to make your marriage life, blissful and happy. So let's keep that in mind, that these things are important, but the most important thing is our own, interaction and behavior towards one another. إن أحسن الحديث كتاب الله العزيز بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والعصر إن الإنسان لفي خسر إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله الذي لا إله إلا هو الحليم الكريم غافر الذنب وقابل التوب وهو الغفور الرحيم ونشهد أن لا إله إلا هو العطوف للعباد بجوده والعواد على المذنبين بحلمه ونشهد أن محمدا نبيه وحبيبه سيد المرسلين وشفيع المذنبين ورحمة للعالمين صلى الله عليه وآله الداعين إلى سبيل الله بالحكمة والموعظة الحسنة قادة الأمم وأولياء النعمة ومعدن الرحمة أوصيكم عباد الله بالتوبة مما سلف من ذنوبكم. One of the other issues related to this theme is, as I use this term nahas again and again in many almanacs, religious calendars that people have, Jantari and things like that, there are, besides this qamar, dar aqrab, there are many days which are known to be not good days for certain activities, including marriage. And this is what I'm saying, that, the hadiths of those category are not that strong. Don't make your life more complicated. Give sadaqah and move on. What is troubling, I use the example of istikhara. People think, we saw the istikhara, we looked at the dates, there is nothing problem there, so our marriage will be okay. No, there's nothing guarantee in that way. It all depends on you both. One of the other things that we see is that, people sometimes say, okay, we have done all these things according to the book. Still, things didn't work out. And sometimes they go beyond what is even there in the books. For example, I've been talking about the nikah or the wedding date. Sometimes I get the call, Maulana, we have mando before that, we have engagement ceremony before that, and then they have another majlis before that. So they have 3, 4 marriage events. So we would like to know whether those are good days or not. First of all, those events don't have any significance as far as Islam is concerned. Whatever day you want to do it, you do it. There's nothing. This is only about nikah and the marriage itself. But what is, more troubling is that sometimes people think that we will have our event, start with qiraat of Quran and hadith kisa, and inshallah Quran and hadith kisa will be guaranteed that everything will be okay. At the end of the hadith kisa, we have a statement that wherever these, followers of Ahlul Bayt gather and remember this event of kisa, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will shower His blessings. It's true. But then what happens after that? It's just becoming like istikhara. People think that, reciting Quran and having hadith kisa, okay, we have done our part. We have already asked for the blessings of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But then they end up doing things where all the blessings run away. The way the marriage itself is done. Mixed gathering has become a problem. People like me are now in the isolation who talk about it. People don't like me on this issue, but this is a reality. When you talk about, music and dancing now, things are increasing. Nasheed, with nasheed, something else comes in, and this is where we have to realize that if you look at the sanctity of this ceremony known as marriage, you start with Quran and hadith kisa. Try to keep it as religious as possible. You can do things in a way where it is a celebration, but do not do things which are haram. And not only that, things which are done. Some of these dances coming from Punjab or Gujarat. This is Urdu speaking community, Gujarati speaking communities. I don't even know what the Arabs do, so I can't use the examples. Or the Iranians. The problems are everywhere. They think just because it's being done by same culture in those lands, it is okay. No, it is not okay. Many of these dances actually have religious background to it. How it started. And you starting with Quran and Hadith, and then you ended up with some things like that. This is where we have to be careful about this issue. And this is where, an even more bothering issue here is that not only that things are done which are haram, it is immediately posted on social media. So one is something doing munkar, what is haram, and the other is then publicizing it. See, I do this. Where there is a double, a sin for it. Because a person commits a sin and then even publicize it, brags about it, is boasting about it. And we have to realize, that there are certain things even in the marriage ceremonies which are more private issues. When people hire this hall, for example, there is an agreement that the administration asks them to sign that you will not post anything done here on social media without asking our permission. Rarely people do that. We see examples later on. People say, Maulana, this is what was happening there. And so that signature there doesn't have any value. We have to realize when you rent a hall, and if there's conditions attached and you signed on it, it is legally and religiously binding on you to abide by it. So you're already starting, your marriage ceremony with the wrong footing there. You're doing something which is haram. because you violated the conditions on which the rental hall was given to you. And these are the issues that we have to really think about it. And let me end with one example that we have to think about it. Social media, this is really a problem. A marriage did not even last for 24 hours. Why? Because when the nikah was recited, on the lady's side, somebody from their relatives posted the video online, and the bride said, I am a very private person. I don't want this to be there, it should be removed. Her demand that it should be removed became a point of contention between both families. And before the 24 hours ends, the talk was about talaq. Think about it. Social media has become our deen and madhab. We don't have this sense of, self-respect for ourselves in this issue. And especially even according to the norms here in the West, you cannot take a picture of somebody without asking their permission. More so if you want to post it somewhere. This is very common here. And even from a religious point of view, it's very important. A lady might be sitting in the lady's side with a hijab, but you don't have a right to post that on social media, even with her hijab, because she doesn't want, her picture to be displayed on the media in that way. And these are the issues. Islam is not only namaz and roza and, halal food and haram food. These are issues of interaction with one another, respecting the rights of one another. Wedding ceremonies do not give us that license to do whatever we want. You might have your own, likes and dislikes, but there are limitations that we have to respect. And, we are already into the marriage season. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us the tawfiq to understand things in a more wise manner. Not just give in to the desires and hawa and hawas, and be among the true followers of Imam Zaman Ajjalallahu Ta'ala Farajul Sharif, inshallah. اللهم صل على سيد المرسلين والشفيع المذنبين نبينا محمد صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم وعلى إمام المتقين وأمير المؤمنين علي بن أبي طالب صلوات الله عليه وعلى سيدة نساء العالمين سيدتنا فاطمة بنت رسول الله صلوات الله عليها وعلى سيد شباب أهل الجنة الحسن المجتبى والحسين الشهيد بكربلاء عليهم الصلاة والسلام اللهم صل على أئمة المسلمين علي بن الحسين ومحمد بن علي وجعفر بن محمد وموسى بن جعفر وعلي بن موسى ومحمد بن علي وعلي بن محمد والحسن بن علي عليهم الصلاة والسلام اللهم صل على مولانا الحجة بن الحسن صاحب العصر والزمان ما أحيا آثار البدء والطغيان هادم أمنية الشرك والنفاق حاصد فر البغي والشقاق صلوات الله وسلامه عليه وعلى آبائه الكرام ما اتصلت الليالي والأيام اللهم عجل فرج وصح المخرج واكحل ناظرنا بنظرة منا إليه واجعلنا من المستشهدين بين يديه اللهم اجعلنا ممن يذكر فتنفعه الذكرى إن الله يأمر بالعدل والإحسان وإيتاء ذي القربى وينهى عن الفحشاء والمنكر والبغي يعظكم لعلكم تذكرون